I'm a huge believer in free trade. There are no valid economic arguments for protectionism. And like I mentioned before, it's your best chance for more markets. It dwarfs anything the government could give to you by giving you open markets will allow you to have much greater trade and income. With regard to the free trade agreements with Colombia, Panama, and South Korea, I think it is a good idea to open up those markets. And it is something that I won't be afraid to stand up to the unions who will oppose these. This is going to be a clear distinction in this campaign also, because I think there will be the other side that will be beholden to the unions and will be afraid to open these markets because of union pressure. With regard to working with the U.S. Trade Representative, absolutely. This is something we need to do. And like I say, we already export 25% of our farm products. That's where we grow. The rest of the world still needs food. We're doing pretty well feeding our people here. If we want to grow in agriculture, we grow through foreign markets. And also, I'd say there's a humanitarian nature to that too. There's still a lot of the world that doesn't have enough food, and we're able to grow it, and we have great productivity. And I think it's important that we not forget where our productivity comes from. It comes from the industry, the industriousness, the uniqueness of every individual farmer. And that can't be said enough. It's not coming from government. We are great as a country. We are great as a farming community. We are great in business because of our system. And our system is freedom and ingenuity and the freedom to make a profit on something. Contrast that with my friend who grew up in the Ukraine and the Bolsheviks took his property. Once they divided the property up, once they said there will be no more profit, then there was no more desire to produce. We have to be proud of our American system. We have to understand that it's capitalism that's made us great. And that's what we need to champion. And it's what the Farm Bureau needs to champion. You need to champion capitalism. You need to champion individual responsibility, but also individuals working hard and reaping the rewards of what you sow. I think trade is important. Probably the most important of the issues we'll talk today is trade with regard to the financial well-being of the American family farm. I will defend trade, I will open new markets, and I think it's probably the most important thing we'll talk about as far as the moment. Thank you.
Again, I appreciate the comments about the Bolsheviks, but again, this is about putting Kentucky farmers first and putting Kentucky families first. And I'll address the issue of trade, sir. But I do have to go back because the backpedaling has already begun. Dr. Paul stated unequivocally to the Courier-Journal on May the 8th that he favors abolishing the USDA. He stated unequivocally on KBT on May the 10th that farm subsidies are not a good idea. Again, this is a fundamental difference between Dr. Paul and myself. It's how do we view the USDA? How do we view what it does in the area of nutrition programs? How do we view the fact that a very small percentage of the Farm Bill goes to programs that give farmers the assurance that they can have a good season? As all of you know, one really bad season, one drought, one devastating year without some assistance, without some notion that you can pick up and move on to the next growing season, that could be devastating. Devastating for one of Kentucky's 60,000 farms. So it's great to plot an example of maybe one company engaging in waste, fraud, and abuse. And I'd submit to you, we're always going to see waste, fraud, and abuse in the system. And I've done a good job, I think, as Attorney General, trying to ferret out waste, fraud, and abuse. But the fact of the matter is, it's Kentucky's tens of thousands of farm families that benefit from the programs that are administered by the USDA. Now to the issue of trade. I'm afraid of an America that's afraid of competing. I want to open up markets too. There's not as much daylight between Dr. Paul and myself as you would think on this particular issue. And I'd be happy to sit down and examine, line by line, the agreements with South Korea, and Panama, and Colombia. I want to open up foreign markets. Right now, many of you who may be soybean producers are experiencing an increase in your exports because in Asia they're using more soybeans. That's a good thing. That's been done by the work of USDA and USTR to try to go abroad and open up additional markets. I will work with you as your next United States Senator to make certain that more of that happens. I do have a concern that Kentucky's lost 100,000 manufacturing jobs in the last decade. As Kentuckians, whether we are working in a Ford plant or whether we're farming, we ought to be concerned about that.